We have three. In addition to Lamont, we have two other funding sources. Dustin Hodgkins from commercial funding business here in Melbourne, covering Central Florida, and his client, Jerry Bennett from Privateer. He has a government contracting firm in Melbourne. We have Fabian Cook, who's an electrical contractor that was helped and assisted in business by Lamont and BDIF, which is another resource in Orlando, Black Business Investment Fund. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to that. And then we have Donna McKenzie from Starter Studio, which is a very innovative incubator company and a nonprofit, privately and publicly funded nonprofit organization here in Orlando. She'll talk a little bit about that more shortly. And then her client, Robert Storr, with Night Tech Gear.
Night Tech Gear.
Night Tech Gear. And I had the fortunate opportunity just about a year ago to see Robert's presentation. And Robert is the third panelist that we've had at SCORE BizFest that's gone through Shark Tank. And he's got a pretty cool story to tell about that, and I'll save that for him. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dustin and Jerry, and tell us a little bit just about how you guys got together. Maybe start, Dustin, by telling a little bit about what type of funding you do provide, how you guys met, and how you helped Jerry.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have some of your guys' time this morning, or this afternoon already. Again, my name is Dustin Hodgkins. I'm with Commercial Business Funding. I'm the National Director of Sales, been with the company about 10 years. We are based here in Orlando, in Maitland, with offices in Tampa, Jacksonville, and Melbourne. We basically cover statewide. We do all business funding throughout the state, but also out of the state if needed. Florida is really our hub. And we do something called accounts receivable and asset-based lending. And really what that means is we base our decision on the strength of your collateral, and specifically your accounts receivable. And really the idea is if we can get comfortable with your customer base and your billing process, a lot of times we can approve funding even when the bank cannot. Or if you can't get enough funding from the bank the amount needed, a lot of times we can. And really use us as kind of a temporary bridge solution to fund you on that ramp up curve, that high growth, until you level off and transfer back to the bank. So a lot of times people use us as kind of a stepping stone to get going, or if a big opportunity comes in on a more established business, a way to give you a lot of liquidity so you can go after those opportunities. And I would say 99% of our business comes from referrals, and unfortunately that was the same kind of situation with Jerry and I in Privateer. His accounting firm, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, a local firm here, introduced us, and basically we sat down, had a little conversation about kind of his business plan, his growth plans. And at the time, I don't believe you had the kind of historical information the bank wanted. So typically a bank is going to want 2 or 3 years historical profitability. And but we got in there, took a look at his customer base and kind of how he was doing things, and felt really good about his accounts receivable and his growth strategy. And so we were able to get in there and do a line with him that as his receivables grew, we grew with him as his business grew. And I think that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, and it's been a great relationship. And I'll let Jerry kind of touch on kind of the benefits of it, and if he has drawbacks, I'll listen to those too.
Thanks, Dustin. I'm an ex-Navy instructor, so y'all wake up, please. I see a lot of sleepy eyes out there. As you said, my name is Jerry Bennett. I own Privateer IT. We're a government contractor. So I sell time. I don't sell an asset. I don't sell hardware of any kind. I sell time. So being less than 3 years old, anybody else that's less than 3 years old for your business? Yeah, guess what? Call Dustin. And the reason why I say that is because we are radioactive to a bank. You can have the greatest credit, you can have the greatest whatever, but if you don't have the tax returns to show the bank, including the SBA, they're not being mean, you're not their kind of customer. So I will also say, not all factoring companies are created equal. We had a predecessor to CBF, and it was one of those things that I just never felt good about working with them. I called my accountant, and she made the introduction to Dustin. He came to my office along with Dave, answered way more questions than they probably had to, because I'm the kind of guy I want to understand it, especially when money's involved. I want to understand it. So we went from our first year, we had about 100K in sales, and then this past year we closed at just under 2 million. So imagine that kind of growth. Imagine calling Dustin and going, help! He'll come to my office, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it, increase our line. And then the other thing that's been really good for us is when we're going after a new contract. So again, we're a services business. We're going after a new contract or going and talking to a new prime as a subcontract, then we have the confidence that knows that if I need to staff 25 people in a month, we can do that. Because at the end of that month, I'm submitting the invoices to CBF, and literally within 24 hours, that cash is in my account. So now, obviously, you got to manage that kind of stuff. There are a lot of other companies out there that will, what's the term we were just talking about? The new loans that are, yeah, MCA's merchant accounts that come out. You might as well be talking to Tony the Loan Shark. The rates are very high. The payback is very short. So imagine a loan. So where we are right now, we're averaging our salary bill, which is, again, I sell time. Our salary bill is about $185,000 a month. When we submit an invoice to CBF, we get the check in the bank so I can make payroll every month. Again, kind of going back to that not all of the companies are created equally, is there has been times, the ones that come to my mind is Labor Day and Memorial Day because it's the first day of the month. Typically tends to fall on a weekend, and our payroll runs on the 7th. Well, if the money's not there, the money's not there. So they've worked with us to make sure that we can meet our deadlines. Now we are transitioning. We're looking at traditional funding now, but the challenge I have is there's some folks here from the smaller lending houses that they're offering under $125,000 loan. Honestly, guys, it doesn't do me any good. If I can't cover at least 2 months of salary, I can't bid on a federal contract job because they may not pay me in time. So I have to be able to carry up to $600,000 worth of a rolling loan in order to meet our payroll. So that's one of the reasons why we're still with CBF, is they've met our requirements every time. So, and asking a lot of questions, meeting with us. We have contracts with very small companies as primes, very large companies as primes. And as you mentioned, where I'm radioactive to a bank, they're basing their credit line to me based on the prime that's writing the check. So little privateer, when it was just me versus somebody like a Northrop Grumman, it's a whole lot easier to get some kind of a line when you're looking at Northrop Grumman's rates. Yes, sir?
I take it you're personally guaranteeing money?
Absolutely. So, however, remember what he said about collateral. Our collateral is our invoices, not my house, not my car. Obviously, if we took that money and I went to Bermuda, at some point they're going to be coming after me and taking those things. But I did not have to put that down as collateral as you would in a traditional bank. That's your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Jerry, you were kind enough to share with us some of your specs load. What are your receivables running? Because that's really what a traditional bank would look at as far as establishing a borrowing base or a lending amount.
So our receivables, close to 200 a month.
Right, so that kind of makes sense when you say traditional lenders are looking at 100,000 or a little bit over that.
Right. So and at that point it just doesn't help us.
Right.
The other thing, please understand the accounting terms, because when you talk to a bank, that's the terms they're going to use. So we talk about debt to income ratios. Doesn't matter if you have a 8,000 credit score. If your debt to income ratio is somewhere hovering around 0, they're not going to be excited to give you a loan. because they need to be able to know that not only can you cover the debts you have for your business, you can also pay your loan back and not pay it out of the proceeds of the loan. So, do you have a question, sir?
I did, Jerry. It's actually more maybe in tune towards Dustin, but does your organization provide a letter of intent to fund, which is sometimes extremely important for a small prime or a subcontractor to even get awarded?
It's funny you asked that. Jerry and I are actually working on that right now. We have done that in the past for other government contractors. We've done a lot of government contract work. So yeah, that's really not an issue. Now, we're not necessarily issuing a letter of credit, but we can draw something up that basically says, yes, we are providing this X amount of financing. We've been in this relationship for this long. It's been handled as agreed.
And it's based on that contract that's potentially could be awarded. Correct.
And I know for a fact some of my guys in the past have used those letters for bids. That's not an issue. And on the personal guarantee thing, I also just wanted to mention that, so we do, I think all lenders these days ask for personal guarantees. That's pretty much standard across the board. And ultimately, in my world, what I'm really asking you to do is say that if your customer ultimately does not pay an invoice, that we will hold you responsible. So really it's almost a watered down personal guarantee in the way in that you're asking for, when you send me an invoice, is it a real, true, actual invoice? You're not just fabricating. So ultimately, that's what we're trying to do.
Do you have to leverage all invoices, or can it just be one?
You can pick and choose which invoices and pick and choose which customers you actually fund with us.
I want to. That is not the norm.
Yeah, no.
The way CBO does that, they are not the norm at all. I get phone calls because it's shown in my records that I'm currently using factoring. So I get phone calls every week from folks wanting to do that. And we recently went down the road of actually entertaining the conversation of going, hey, we can charge you so much less and we can do this and we can do that. And guess what? When they actually sat down with numbers, it was higher than what we're currently paying at CBF. So again, your mileage may vary. Your business, if you can get asset-based lending to where you're buying a thing, absolutely go for it. But for us, this is what's working.
Thank you. So we just talked a little bit about factoring, accounts receivable financing. That's one option. You know, you got to have a certain type of business structure. You obviously have to have a good accounts receivable base that lenders like Dustin can get comfortable with. Our second lender, again, is BBIF, and Lamont Jackson could not join us today, so I'm going to try to pitch it as well as I can. I know a little bit about BBIF. I should know a little bit more. I'm just joined their loan committee, so I should know something about it. Haven't looked at your loan though. But anyhow, Fabian Cook is with Grassland Electric, the electrical contractor that BBIF helped put in business. And BBIF, if you don't know, stands for Black Business Investment Fund, and they have 5 funds. One is earmarked specifically for African American businesses, and then the others are open to the general public. And they go from government contract funding to construction financing, which is a program that you're under, right, Fabian? And the beauty of firms like BBIF is not only do they traditionally meet with you, consult with you, and underwrite your opportunity, but they work with you on an ongoing basis in roundtable discussions. It's actually a mandatory requirement that, all right, we're going to disperse these funds to your business to help you grow, but you're going to commit to work with us on a monthly basis in a roundtable, not only with folks from our firm, but with other individuals in your industry. So it really helps that company grow and progress and go to the next level. So Fabian, with that, why don't you tell us a little bit about when you and Lamont met first and how that process went for you?
Okay. Ready on?
Hello.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Fabian Cook, president of Grassland Enterprises. I own a small electrical company. We've been in business for 11 years. Company's made up of 17 employees. I kept running into a glass ceiling, approaching banks as far as loans. So I was always told make it past that 3 to 5 year mark, and we'll give you a loan. 3 to 5 years came, I didn't get a loan. So we did good. I didn't even take a salary, hoping to increase my net profits at the end of the year, and it still didn't make a difference. So someone encouraged me to approach BBIF. We were averaging around $500,000–600,000 a year, but I wanted to take my business to the next realm. So we got an opportunity for a $700,000 project that was only 3 months long. I felt that we were capable and had the capacity to do it. The major problem was I didn't have enough money to do it. So I approached BBIF. We mitigated all the risk and liability, and they took a chance with me. Whereas the bank that I've been doing business with, I don't want to disclose their name, but I've had hundreds of thousands of dollars going to their bank, and they wanted to give me a $5,000 loan, so I wasn't cutting it. So, needless to say, we took on the project. We've actually completed the project, and now we're in line for a $3.5 million project. So,
that's awesome.
Thank you. So, I have to sit at the table with BBIF to see what things we can work out. The major problem in my industry is, like Jerry said, is cash flow to cover payroll. You can imagine a $10,000–$15,000 a week payroll. I can't sleep at night sometimes. So, and on these public projects, there may be 60–90 days before you get your first check.
Sure.
So, as long as we can get past that hurdle, we would be able to take on this $3.5 million project. So that's kind of where we stand right now with BBIF.
Great. Have you guys talked about an exit strategy or a strategy to move on to the next level to get bank financing?
Yes. Well, we have these monthly roundtables, and we discuss those things. I'm actually more conservative, and they push me to go after these large projects because they say if you get it, we'll get you funding.
Right.
And once you go through our program, we'll position you to go to the traditional banks.
Okay.
So that's what we're kind of working towards. Yeah.
Super. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Next, we have Donna McKenzie from Starter Studio and Robert Storr from Night Gear Tech.
I go by Doug.
Doug? Good. Sorry, Doug. Like I said earlier, I had a fortunate opportunity to view Doug's presentation last year through Leadership Winter Park, and again, he's the third panelist that we've had here on stage that has gone through a Shark Tank. So why don't we just start a little bit about that experience and entertain us a little bit.
Oh, sure. So briefly, and we get asked about this a lot because it was a very defining part of our growth. We were only 6 months old as a company, and when we decided that we were going to try to get on Shark Tank, and had we known the statistics before we went to an open casting call, we probably wouldn't have done it. 50,000 companies apply every season, and 120 make it on the air. So it's not something that you write into your business plan. It's one of those things that you know, if you have confidence in your business and your product, why not? And that was kind of our attitude. So it took us about 6 months going through open casting calls and various stages of submitting videos and paperwork, but we finally were selected to fly out to LA and film, and we were, if any of you have seen the show, season 8, episode 3 was our episode, and it was just a very intense experience. So people ask us all the time, you know, what was it? Were you scared? We were beyond scared at that point. So I mean, it was you're either ready or you're not. I tell my wife, and by the way, this is who I work for, Renata Storr, the audience. You know, it's not a tiger; it can't eat us. You know, we just need to prepare. We developed 68 business metrics that we knew that the sharks might ask. and we drilled them inside and out, and we could recite those in our sleep. And that was really the key. Is you had to get there. We have a very good product, a line of night runner shoe lights and industrial shoe lights. So we knew the product was good. We were the weak part, right? We're the ones who could screw it up. So we made sure that we were prepared. And my attitude was, no one should know your business or your numbers better than you should, right? None of you should be able to walk up and ask a question or know more about my business than I do. So that was the least we could do is be that prepared. And it paid off. We got offers from 4 of the sharks. They ended up in a bidding war, and we were kind of in the enviable position of stepping back, shutting our mouths, and letting it sort itself out. And we ended up taking a deal with Robert Herjavec.
Tom, tell us a little bit about Starter Studio, what you guys do, how long you've been here, and then how you and Doug got together and how you guys help each other.
So Starter Studio is a resource for entrepreneurs. We primarily work with entrepreneurs that have software businesses or hardware that's connected in some sort, like Doug and Renato's product was. Where is your product, by the way?
It's in my briefcase.
Okay. Don't go far without it, I know.
We'll have a show and tell a little bit.
But anyway, we work with technology-enabled companies for the most part, but it can be very wide-ranging. I mean, we have companies that have sensor technology, capacitor technology, space technology, I mean, stuff I don't understand, to apps, you know, they use on your phone every day, software, connected devices, like Doug and Renata's products. So those are the types of companies we work with. The companies we work with are competing against companies in Silicon Valley, and Boulder, and Austin, and other tech hubs around the country. So Bill began this about talking about engineering talent, computer development talent here in Central Florida. I've worked with a lot of startups, a lot of technology companies, and I can tell you the engineers that I've worked with by far came from Central Florida. They were the best and the brightest. So there's not a lack of talent here. The problem is our talent's getting sucked up to other parts of the region. I don't have the statistic, but I heard we're the biggest exporter of talent to Silicon Valley, especially our computer talent. So those are some of the things we're trying to work with. So at the very core of what we do is we try to create companies that are ready for venture or angel investment. So we try to get those companies ready by providing whatever resources they need. We have co-working space, meaning space that they can rent for as little as $100 a month. We have locations in downtown Orlando, in Winter Park, in Paramore, and a satellite office in Volusia County, and we do serve all of Central Florida. We also provide all kinds of programming, lunch and learns, founders talks, anything that an entrepreneur might need to get started. Mentorship is a driving force of what we do, so we pair our startups with mentors that have industry experience, or they've been an entrepreneur themselves, have been down the road, or subject matter experts from marketing to accounting to anything. And we also have 2 accelerator programs. An accelerator program has a specific beginning and an end, so it's different than an incubation or an ongoing program in that there's a start and a finish to it, and at the finish there is a demo day or graduation day. But the first accelerator we have is what we call an ideation accelerator. So literally we can take people with an idea on the back of a napkin and in 12 weeks get them to a product that's ready to go to market or just about ready to go to market. So literally, you know, many of our founders are not technologists. So I say we work with a lot of tech-enabled companies, but just look around you. There's hardly a business that's not tech-enabled these days. So literally, napkin to product that's ready to go to market. We've had 9 classes. We've graduated close to 100 companies in that accelerator program. And then we have a seed stage accelerator, which we give funding as well. So we give between $25,000 and $225,000 of funding, depending on success metrics in that accelerator. That's only been around for a couple of years now, and Doug and Renato were in the first class of that accelerator program. So they received funding from us, but they very much like IF. We just don't give the money and say good luck. We really wrap our arms around them with our mentors and our staff to make sure that they're getting the resources they need and that they get the coaching and everything that they need to get their company to the next level. The companies we work with, banks will hardly even give them a checking account. Sorry, Phil. Much less a loan. So what we're talking about is very, very, very early funding. We do work a lot with angel and venture capital. I know there's a few people that are probably familiar with that type of funding, but I'll just give you a quick example of what that is. So angel and venture capital funds companies that they feel are highly scalable and have a global reach usually. Those are the kind of companies like you hear about with Facebook and Google. Those are like the big stars, but there are tens of thousands of other companies that are getting funded and making an impact in your life, and it's probably on your phone and touching other parts of your life today. So we're really trying to activate the capital and the resources here in Central Florida to make sure that anyone that has an idea can activate that idea here.
So what was the timing of when you got funding for Doug's company and you ended up on Shark Tank? How did that whole picture play out?
Well, very interestingly, we had applied, we started the Shark Tank saga like in March of 2016, and we actually went through that process. As you're going through that process, you can't tell anybody, right? There comes a time when it's super secret. You've signed these huge documents that say you're liable for $5 million in damages, which good luck getting it from us. But at the same time, we were working on fallback plans. So again, your business plan can't just be Shark Tank because it's not going to happen. So the Firespring Fund came up, and I said, you know what? We had been very familiar with the Starter Studio, and we used to, because we were both working full time, we couldn't get into a Starter Studio, but we used to come to the lunch and learns. We used to come to the seminars they'd have in the evenings. We were soaking up every bit of knowledge that we could to figure out how to get to the next step. We took many classes here at SCORE, and there was a lot of help that we got along the way. So we were pursuing every way that we could possibly get financial help and also learn more about where we needed to go. So we applied for Firespring Fund. We ended up, after we aired on Shark Tank, super secret, can't talk about it, we ended up getting accepted to Firespring Fund. So we were actually going through that program, and I remember one of our meetings, when I was allowed to talk about it, I said, guys, I have to tell you something, So they were one of the first to know that we were going to air on Shark Tank. So it was actually happening simultaneously.
That's impressive. All right, here in Central Florida, Shark Tank recipients, yes ma'am.
We met you folks in Texas
Yes.
at the running event, probably
Yeah.
4 years ago, and you
Yeah.
were like, we were at one booth and you guys were here like, oh my gosh, so now I can actually say what I knew you win.
Yeah.
You literally had just launched.
You had a prototype.
Yes, you had just launched. It was like, oh my goodness, what a small world. And here we all
Yeah,
live
it
in
sure is a small one. Yeah.
Orlando.
You got a question?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what was the deal with Robert?
So the deal was we had come in asking for $250,000 for 10% of our company. So real quickly, what's that valuation? 2.5 million.
2.5 million.
So we actually, after 4 offers, it went back and forth and up and down and all over the place. Some of them wanted 30% of the company. None of them were willing to go 10%. So we ended up settling for $250,000 for 15%. And also a $100,000 line of credit. So that's exactly what we needed at the time to continue to work on our next Bluetooth-enabled product that we developed at Firespring Fund.
Well, do we have a prototype? And talk about how you came up with that idea.
Sure. Well, first of all, my wife and I were runners. We had corporate jobs, actually in the construction industry. I've been in the construction industry for 35 years. She's, Renata is not that old, but she was in the interior design architecture. She came to us in the 30s. So we came up with this idea. I was actually training for my 5th marathon. I was out one early morning, which if you run here in Florida, it's hot. You got to get there, you know, when it's nice and cool in the morning and evening. And I tripped on a pothole. So it was, you know, it's not the first time, but it was like frustrating. And I said, you know what? The idea popped into my head. I need headlights for my sneakers. And I kind of laughed about it, you know, and I'm like, well, I wonder what that would look like, you know. And so the whole way home, when I'm kind of hobbling home, I'm thinking about it. And so I come in and I tell Renata, I need headlights for my sneakers. And she's like, well, go buy some. And I was like, well, I don't think they make them. And so these are actually our first model, our 270. They're very light, 1.5 ounces. They attach to the shoelaces and give you a 30-foot beam distance out in front. Lithium-ion rechargeable, 3 to 5 hours of battery life. So we started working on what this thing would be, right? So we started kind of silly in our kitchen, taping flashlights to our shoes, right? Proof of concept, you know, just light down low and work, and it worked, you know. So we're like, this is kind of cool. So then we realized that that's pretty heavy. You can't run with that. So we had to figure out a way to make them lighter. And really, the kind of the magic of this, LED lights are not magic, but the magic of these is the clip system, and that's what we ended up getting a patent on. Because it's how do you keep something stable when it's attached to a moving object? So that was really the trick. So we started working on this. That was 2013 when I had the accident. Or the epiphany, whichever you want to call it. And we were certain that this would take 6 months to get to market. So in 2015, at the end of 2015, we ended up getting to market with a product. So it's, you know, there's probably a lot of tech entrepreneurs in the audience. There certainly are in Orlando. When you're making a physical product, there's a lot more difficulties than when you're doing software or technology, because your mistakes are physical. You have to make it, get it out there, test it, make a mistake, make another one. So it's a long process that we were learning as we were going through this process. But this is our first product that we launched in 2015. We've sold these in 50 countries around the world. We've got 75 retailers. And we're now launching this summer our third product, which is the Night Shift Pro Industrial shoe lights. So this is for the workplace. This is for construction workers. This is for parcel delivery workers. We already have a test that is set up for the New York City Metropolitan Transit Authority. So they have miles and miles of tunnels to maintain. So these lights will be for workers who need hands-free lighting to do their jobs more safely. So we went from a want-to-have product to a have-to-have product, and it's going to be a much bigger product. Not that we still love running and the outdoors activities that these help with, but the Night Shift is really going to be able to expand our horizons.
Great, thank you very much. That's a real fun story, and again, right here in our backyard in Central Florida. You talked a little bit about Star Studio, but you recently had a merger of entities, right?
Yeah, you may have noticed Doug using Fire Spring Fund. So we actually started in 2013, and the ideation accelerator that I talked about started in 2013. And then that was started by an entrepreneur that saw a gap that other entrepreneurs needed some mentor and training to get their back of the napkin, like he was just describing, to a product that's ready to go to market. And then in 2014, another group of entrepreneurs got kicked out of some space they were sharing with another entrepreneur because he had sold his company. And they're like, well, we need co-working space. So again, entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, and that's really the theme behind everything that we do. So we find gaps, entrepreneurs find gaps, that's what entrepreneurs do, that's what you do, but we're just directing it and helping lift other entrepreneurs up. So that co-working space was called Canvas, you may have heard that name. And then a couple of years ago, we started a seed fund, which was Fire Spring Fund. And again, that was a separate organization, all of the nonprofits, different board of directors. They had several things that connected them, one of which was I was the director of all of them. Sounds worse than it actually was, because frankly we're working on the same problem. Like, what are the resources that we can bring to help these entrepreneurs get further faster than they could on their own? So the fund, like I said before, gives some seed funding. It's designed to be that first funding into a company and get them to the next level of funding. And when Doug and Renata went through the class, it was called Fire Spring Fund. So we merged those into an umbrella organization, Starter Studio. It's a 501c3, it's a nonprofit, so it's absolutely a community resource, and it's open to anyone that wants to get started. And just one last thing, one of the things that we really take great pride in with our organization is there's multiple ways of entry. If you just want to come like Doug and Renata did, they came to just some of the workshops that were free and open to the public. They took whatever information that they could from that, and then when they were ready, they joined a more formal program that we have. So if you just need space, if you just want space, we have that. We have a beautiful location in Winter Park and 2 others. So really just trying to find gaps. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Donna. We have a little bit of time for Q&A, but before we do that, I just want to address the affectionate reference to banks not lending money. It's true for companies 0 to 2 or 3 years. I mean, you think about it. I mean, that's just not our risk profile. You know, our source of funds are your deposits, our customers' deposits, and funds from the government. So we have a certain risk profile. I mean, if you think about it, if you're our depositor and you're on our loan committee, and we have a loan request for a startup, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to use your money to lend to that startup. And you're like, yeah, that's probably not how I want you to use our money. So I mean, that's not our risk profile, but at the same time, it's frustrating to us to see really quality entrepreneurs like we have right up here. We come across them every single day. And it's frustrating for us because we can't help them today. But that's why we bring up these sources, so we can share with you what alternative sources of funding are out there. I mean, not only for you all, but for us too. We need to know that. Donna's company or firm is one of those resources. BBIF is the other one, and then we have all the resources right here at NEC. And not to reiterate what I've already talked about, but the NEC is one of a kind in the whole United States of America. It just is. I was talking to Jerry Ross earlier today. He's been called to DC twice in the last 5 years for a reason, because we in Orlando have the NEC and no one else does. So as an entrepreneur, if you truly are an entrepreneur and you only know that, you'll be successful. I guarantee 100% you'll be successful utilizing the resources that are here at NEC and the folks up here on stage. So with that, I'll open it up. We got 15 minutes for questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. What if you're an entrepreneur? Thanks, Liz. What if you're
Maybe we turn it on. Hello. Okay, so what if you have a business, and it's a pretty successful business, but you have no receivables? There have been a lot of banks that say, you don't have any receivables, we're not lending you any money. So what, I mean, I'm in business 5 years, we don't carry any receivable. So we run into that when we're looking for a brick and mortar building.
You know, we look at basically three things when we evaluate a loan request, and one's cash flow. Having not receivables tells me it's your cash turns pretty quickly. So if not, I mean, where else is your cash deployed?
Cash stays in business, but there's no receivables. They say they want a receivable. I've collected money all my life, so I'm like, what do you mean? You want people to owe me money? I said, no, I'd rather have it in the bank.
That's a great way to run your business. I mean, if you don't need receivables, God bless you. But you know, again, we look at the cash flow. I mean, you know, we got to make sure that the cash flow is sufficient to pay the debt that you're looking to borrow, and then we look at the collateral. In your case, you're talking about bricks and mortar real estate. You know, we would, you know, lend 70 to 80%, so we expect to see 20 to 30% of cash that you're going to put into the project. And then we look at you personally as a guarantor, as we talked about earlier. Typically, there's no non-recourse lending in our arena, generally speaking. So if those three line up, it should be a pretty viable option for us, or an opportunity for us to look at.
And Phil, I apologize if you mentioned this, but Axion, who offices here at the NEC, they have a table on the floor today.
Okay. Axion is another lending resource here in the NEC. Thank you.
I'll leave the microphone. Dustin, real quick, in regards to a young entrepreneur that's just starting off, obviously the personal guarantee can be a pretty frightening experience, and you can understand that. So what kind of assistance do you give them as your client to help with maybe the scope of services or how the language would read to ensure probably that they're going to get paid from their client? And do you offer any of that?
As far as collection help?
Not collections, but basically to write the contract or the verbiage in the contract in regards to ensure that they're going to get paid on time, so there's not an out. The biggest fear would be maybe you're halfway in the engagement, or maybe you're doing some manufacturing, you're starting to produce the product, you're 2 weeks into it, and they call and cancel the order. So,
yeah, well that's real hard to guarantee. I sometimes see, so like I can be as involved in the collection process as you want. And sometimes some of our clients will ask us to get involved just so your client, your customer, ultimately sees that a third party and a financial institution is involved in the deal. And sometimes that little nudge will help facilitate all that. Now there's a lot of our clients that say, hey, look, I'm a little bit different than a pure factoring company in that I'm not as involved in the collection process. And factoring is kind of this dirty word out there, and really the heartburn comes from the collection process. They're actually going to call your customers for the payment on the receivables. And that can open up all sorts of can of worms. So typically, I'm a little bit different than that. I'm more of a hybrid between traditional factoring and asset-based lending. And what that means is I can be a little bit more hands-off the collection process. So if a receivable starts going long, I'm going to call you up and say, hey, you might want to call your customer and try to get the payment in the door. It makes it a little cleaner. But in your case, you know, I can't guarantee that they're going to pay a receivable. There is receivable insurance out there you can get. So there are resources out there that you can insure receivables. I don't do that, but I can connect you with that. Ours is typically recourse financing in 90 days. So if an invoice ultimately isn't paid by day 90, we do hold you responsible. Now maybe some of that is me sending out that past due letter to your client if you want me to.
I wasn't
kind of get that
referring
process.
to post-engagement, I was referring to pre-engagement. Do you actually help them to draft the engagement to ensure probability of payment, or would you?
I certainly could do that. And we do some purchase order funding as well, where we'll maybe do a low advance on a purchase order, send the funds directly to the supplier to get the process going, and then fund the invoice once it goes. But like I said, I really do think there is some value to sometimes involving us on the collection process, just so they see that it's not just you, there is this institution behind it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Don, you mentioned Star Studio in Winter Park. Is that in the Douglas Grand building?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that way everyone can get the question.
I just want to know what type of company you do help fund. They get Do you have a limit?
Yeah, so we fund all industries as long as you have a commercial receivable. You're doing a sale or a service for another business entity or the government. So we do a lot of manufacturing, a lot of staffing companies, a lot of IT companies, really anyone that's providing a sale, a product or a service to another business and then having to extend terms to them. And so again, I'm really going to base my decision on the strength of your customer base. So retail obviously isn't a fit, those are going to be private individuals. But if you're working with other businesses, selling them a product or performing a service, and you have to extend them terms, really the whole goal of my product is that if you have to extend terms to a customer, that you are receiving the payment on day one. The day you invoice, it's cash in hand that day, and it speeds up that whole cash flow cycle and gives you a lot of liquidity. And I always tell my people, I'm like, hey, if I can come in here and give you a bunch of liquidity, a bunch of capital, can you grow your business? And if the answer is yes, then it's probably a good fit.
So as long as I'm working with another company, you allow?
Correct.
And let me give a plug for SCORE. Some of the services that we offer clients is sitting down and helping you figure out what may be your best route for financing. We work with all of these type of companies. We know where it may be the best fit for you to go. And most folks are going to require a business plan, and I know a lot of people in this room go, oh, I don't want to write a business plan. Do you need a business plan, guys?
Can I answer that? That has got to be one of the most overused and misunderstood terms in the business, honestly. And the reason why I say that is, I'll give you an example. I'm working with the Small Business Administration right now in order to do a mentor protege with a company up in DC. I have to have a business plan to do that. The requirements of their business plan is about 2 pages. When I had this conversation with the folks at Eastern Florida, they told me that I had to have a business plan, and they gave me a sample. It was 27 pages long. So the theory of the business plan is it's not for anybody else. It's for you. It's the plan that says, okay, I want to be a gajillionaire in 2 years. How am I going to get there? So, because remember what they always taught us when we were kids, you know, a goal without a plan is called what? A fantasy. Not going to happen.
Yeah, very well said. And the business plan is a lot. We teach business canvas model. We talk about lean startups. So it depends on what you're working on, whether you need that traditional. But to Phil, I can probably speak for you. Do you want to sit and go through a 20-25 page business plan? No.
I do. Especially if it's a new client. I mean, I want to know as much as possible. I mean, I think Doug said it best. I mean, he identified, what, 68 metrics or area of importance that they needed to know inside and out to be prepared for Shark Tank. That's no different than going to your banker or any other investor. You got to be prepared. I mean, we've been in the business long enough that we can ask a few questions and tell pretty quickly if you're prepared or not. And if you're not, you're just making it tougher on everybody. So I mean, the business plan is very critical, and I mean, I don't, want to have to read it, but I want to read it to get to know my client and the opportunity better, so that I can articulate it through our system, because I got people I got to talk to about the relationship as well. So yeah, the business plan is critical, but to your point, Jerry, it is. It's more for you. Really, I mean, how can you have this idea? How are you testing it? How are you validating it without being able to put it on some format to validate your assumptions and what can go wrong, and if they do, how are we mitigating that? Those are the things. It just, to me, it's common sense that you go through to make sure your opportunity is viable and you're going to be able to sell. So yeah, I think it's critical. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I mean, we utilize life insurance policies for key man. If you're the main operator of the business and you hold all the knowledge and the skills in your business, and if you go away, it poses a risk to us as a financial institution, we're going to require a life insurance policy, generally speaking.
I think the question is, can you use the cash value of the life insurance? Is that more what you're thinking?
Yes. Yes. Yes, we can. Yes. That's just as good as cash was. Cash surrender value, not face value.
I've got a quick question for Doug. What are some of the biggest challenges you found with? Earlier you mentioned your product now is being sold in many countries.
Right.
But what were some of the barriers or challenges you found with having to distribute your product to so many countries?
Well, great question, because we one of the ways we started out is through a project on Kickstarter, and that's how we funded our design of our first product. We were surprised when we found out that people in 25 countries had ordered our product. So this was our first inclination that, gee, maybe somebody outside of Florida would want this, right? So, I mean, that was eye-opening to us. And as we developed the product and started interacting with these real-life customers that we got through Kickstarter, we realized that there's, people, it gets dark everywhere. Who knew it, right? And that everybody needed this product. And but distributing it is very, very difficult, as you might imagine. So our distribution plan for and we've only been in operation for 2.5 years, right? We've only been on the market. So early on, we shipped everything one piece at a time from the United States. But it's remarkable that people were willing to pay $15 more and wait 3 weeks for it. Which you're really testing a customer at that point. So we have about 8 months ago, we just went to Amazon Global for all of our distribution. So they solve a lot of problems for us. So we're now in 8 countries in Amazon Global. So we just ship them product directly from our factory. They distribute it, and they convert your listing into the various languages. We're on a wait list now for Australia. That's a big market for us because anybody knows their geography, it's getting dark there now. So we need to be in there. And so we're following, our global strategy right now is to follow Amazon, just because it simplifies things for us. All the duties, the tariffs, the warehousing, everything that you would have to deal with in all of those countries, different laws, different currencies, they smooth all that out.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all. Dustin, Jerry, Fabian, Donna, Doug, thank you all for serving on our panel. We appreciate it. Great information for the group. We're taking we have a 30-minute break, but we have raffles out there. There's good prizes. You got a white ticket when you first came in, free raffle. You can buy more good stuff out there. We have our Pitch Fest contestants. Where are they now? Our previous BizFest, we had a Pitch Fest contest that profiled 3 startups and 3 second stage companies. Over the last 4 years, we're bringing 3 back tonight or today at 3:30 to see where they are now. So that should be real fun. And then we have the keynote speakers after that. So enjoy your 30 minutes. If you are an entrepreneur, take advantage of our speed counseling. They're in the other, across the hallway, 25 minutes with a speed counselor, and we'll see you back at 3:30.
And you'll find snacks in the center of the expo.
Thanks, sir.